Hey, folks, we're back and we're talking about digital transformation. And a funny thing happened on the way to innovation. I think we discovered that there was just a lot of stuff that we were working with that was suboptimal and just wasn't working the way it was supposed to in the first place. And a lot of these digital transformation initiatives shifted from being about some great new innovation thing to simple, good old fashioned modernization. Alan, you wrote two stories related to this topic on digital CXO. We invite you all to check those things out. But what's your take on what's happening here?
You know, I've always felt that digital transformation was a loaded word, right? It meant something different to different people. To some people, digital transformation meant transforming from an analog world to a digital world, right? They went from a brick and mortar store maybe to actually being able to sell stuff electronically online. COVID was a huge catalyst for that, right? People didn't come to your store shopping. You had to get it. You had to get your goods to them and be able to sell it to them online. Then, for others, digital transformation became code word for moving to the cloud, which to me was really a modernization play. But for many people, digital transformation was, I'm going to take advantage of the latest digital. I'm already digital to a certain degree, but I'm going to take advantage of the latest digital platforms. For others, it's a much broader term, emphasis on transformation, not on digital. And that's the second article I wrote, The Rise of the CTrO, the Chief Transformation Officer. Their charter is to transform the company or their organization into a modern organization. And it's not maybe just IT even, frankly. It's the people, process, technologies. It's a modern, transforming to take advantage of modern formulas and so forth. So while we all are, and I cited in the first article, there's companies that put out, here's the stats on digital transformation. It's a gazillion trillion dollar industry, and there's all of this and all of that and all these big numbers, highfalutin numbers that make you say, oh my God, digital transformation is rocking and rolling. It's the major force in the industry. But when you peel back those numbers, what you really see is a lot of the money is being spent, Mike, as you said, on good old-fashioned modernization. We're modernizing. We're modernizing from waterfall to microservices, cloud and cloud native from data center, right? Containerization. We're using AI and machine learning and we're moving from APM to observability, right? All of these, not little, but all these disparate things that we do that make for the modern enterprise, that make for the modern IT stack. And we could still call that digital transformation. I do believe that still is digital transformation. But I think we've got to be smarter about what we think of when we talk digital transformation.
Alan, if I had to play historian for a moment, I remember the first time I really kind of heard about it. I don't know if it's the OG of digital transformation, but if you remember Tom Siebel Systems, CRM, the early CRM player, he wrote a book on it. And he described there were four things. It was moving to the this is how he defined his book. This is pre-COVID. So it was moving to the cloud, it was automation, it was data, and it was AI. And so that was kind of my OG definition of what digital transformation is. And I think as COVID hit and we needed everything to go digital, then the digital become what the transformation was about, is to getting things into a digital format because we can't do manual processes with everybody working from home. And then that started to expand, as you mentioned. We saw a lot more going to the cloud. One of the characteristics of my time of working in large enterprises is what happens is as soon as projects of a certain type start getting funded, suddenly your project is now one of those kinds of projects because that's how you get funding for it. So our, whatever it was, Mitch's Mitch's favorite project, is now a digital transformation project. Let's go get those funds. So it just broadens the definition, and that's kind of where we are. It's a little bit of everything. It's a rainbow of different kinds of projects, and it really is some modernization, some going digital, some going AI. I think it's a move forward, taking your technology and moving it forward in some way.
Mitch, to some extent, yes, and to some extent, no. That's not a new concept. Going way before Siebel's book was back in the mid 90s, was a book called Reengineering the Corporation, which was all about how we transform the corporation, if you remember that, right?
I remember reengineering projects. Yes, I do.
Right, reengineering projects. And it was really about arguing against incremental improvements and going for quantum leap type improvements. And in one sense, a digital transformation, digitizing your analog processes, really is that quantum leap forward or quantum leap different. And they argued for, which I think now, 30 years later, we're seeing the formalization of a leader, in this case, the Chief Transformation Officer, CTrO, because you need somebody senior enough in the organization who has the authority and the sway to actually evoke change, that these are not things in a large corporation that can be done from the bottom or from the middle. They have to have a mandate from the top. Now, once you have that mandate and you start doing those projects, yes, everybody wants to blow them on because that's where the money is. But I do think that there's a very valid purpose in having a chief transformation officer who has the mandate to change the organization, how it does business, which really means changing the culture of the business as well. To me, it's much more than just the digital workflow.
The mandate, though, is complicated because it kind of goes like this. Digital transformation officer launches new project, builds new app, and then needs data to actually feed this thing. And then they got to call up the CIO, and they call up the CIO and they go, I need access to this data, and I need these legacy systems of yours need to have APIs, which is usually followed by a comment from the CIO that's roughly equivalent to what you're talking about, Willis. And then it just sits.
And that has gone on for how many years, right?
Since the beginning of
was
time.
it digital transformation when we went from a green screen to a screen scraper? Remember that phase?
Mm-hmm.
We've gone through. We are never still. We do not float in still water. This industry is on a kayak at the Colorado River at its most, highest point. We are constantly changing. There is never a point in time that we're not transforming. And how long will it be before AI is not the shiny new tool? It's all quantum. I'm already getting there. And every new term that comes out, I feel like it's just a way to market to investors. Right? It's all about getting funding, and these small companies coming up. And now, if you don't have AI in your portfolio, then you're not being looked at. How long will it be before it says you've got to have quantum? This is just who we are as a community. We always have been in a constant flux of change. And, I don't know why we now have a digital transformation officer. I think it's kind of a cool term. I want to be one. It looks like a really fun job. But, they're going to, what are they going to transform? Are they going to ever stop? So I think we just have to see it for what it is, that we're an industry that can't stop. We have to constantly evolve. There is no other.
We're like sharks. We're like sharks. If you're not swimming forward, they drown.
Yeah. If you're not swimming forward, you will drown. Yeah.
I think evolve is really the word that kept coming to my mind, was that we have to evolve. It's almost Darwinian, right? If you don't keep evolving, if we don't keep moving into technologies, some companies or people become extinct in their careers or in their trajectory. So that's what I think transformation. But chief evolution officer, well, we'll see if that comes up. But at least
there are people who don't believe in evolution still. Don't forget.
Well, I know.
At least in the U.S. anyway.
But one more thing: the more things change, the more things stay the same. Yeah, we still have programmers. True. We still have to scan code. We still have to run and build. We still have to figure out how to deploy things. We still have to figure out the dependencies across all of these components. They're just parts. Parts are parts. And in that aspect, we haven't changed any.
But the role of the transformation officer is to eat the sacred cows, basically. right? They make the tastiest hamburgers, to borrow another book's title, right? And the problem in many organizations is people are resistant to change because we've always done it this way. It works. And yes, it works, but can it be better? And can we do more, quicker, better, faster, more if we change? And in organizations, there are two opposing forces. And if you don't have something opposing the force that wants to stay static, you will stay static.
That kind of reminds me of the Goal and Phoenix Project and all that stuff, right?
Absolutely.
Change
But I wish we were a little more deliberate about it, because when you go visit a lot of these enterprises, you discover that there's just stacks and stacks of crap and projects that people built, and they're all kind of isolated, and nobody actually, integrated much of this with any kind of real plan. And it's different business leaders funded all this other stuff, and it's just kind of a mess.
It's interesting how it evolves, because some things do fall by the wayside. Like you were talking about, AI might not be the shiny object anymore. I'm having a little bit of PTSD from the re-engineering era of the 90s, Jack. Thank you very much. For me, that was all about moving to client server, using X workstations instead of terminals, on service reps' desks and things like that, which is about bringing graphical user interface, putting Unix boxes on people's desks. Well, that kind of went by the wayside as we replaced that with computers and Windows devices. But it was part of the evolution. It was part of the way that, yes, the client server stuff stayed, and then we evolved that to where we are today. But it's part. I like your river analogy, Tracy, because it's a constant motion thing, and you trying to paddle against the tide or against the river. Good luck, right? Especially if you're at the peak of it. So sometimes it carries you if you're not be careful.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's take a break here on TechStrong Gang. We're going to come back into our C block. Busy bee body. Ooh, it sounds good. You're watching TechStrong Gang.